Stiff as he may be, he can sense something.
Shane Warne has struck. Nathan Lyon, the off-break bowler, looks to the heavens as he's about to bowl his first over in international cricket and Test cricket. Here we go. Oh, and he's got a wicket first ball. Yes, he's got a wicket first ball. What a start to a career these two are having. First it was Copeland, now it's Lyon. That was a lovely ball first up. A little bit of drift, a little bit of turn, a little bit of kick, and what's more, a really good catch.
4 years, 8 months and 25 days. This is how much time separated Shane Warne's final ever Test wicket at the SCG in 2007 and Nathan Lyon's first Test wicket in Sri Lanka in 2011. The journey from farewelling the king a spin to the birth of the GOAT was one of the greatest challenges for Australian selectors, with many frontline spinning options trialled during that period of time. In this video, I will revisit the selection decisions made by Cricket Australia as they attempted to fill the void left by Shane Warne after his retirement.
So much chance of picking it. Oh, he's bowled him round his legs. Bowled him round his legs.
Stuart MacGill is the ultimate definition of a bridesmaid, never the bride. He was the quickest bowler to actually reach 150 wickets, and he also took 53 wickets in 11 tests during Warne's 12-month drug ban back in 2003-2004, and came back into the Aussie side with 198 wickets next to his name through 39 matches. He had been the man in waiting for so long and was such a solid backup option. He would have been a 400-plus wicket taker for any other country in the world. It was just a shame he was born 2 years after the great S.K. Warne.
And that finally is that. Australia have won the World Cup of 2007.
Because of the Cricket World Cup, Australia didn't actually play any away test matches in 2007, and its first test following the retirement of Shane Warne wasn't until the following summer at the Gabba against Sri Lanka. During the first test of the summer, not only did MacGill replace Warne, but Mitchell Johnson also debuted in place of the retired Glenn McGrath. It's also worth mentioning that the long-standing Langer-Hayden opening partnership was also replaced as the result of Langer's retirement, with New South Wales' Phil Jakes being the first cab off the rank. And look, let's just say that finding a replacement for Langer and Hayden at the top of the order is an ongoing process which still happens to this day.
Aspects of that.
Got in! Yes, he has! That's his wicket, that's what he needed. The perfect line, pitched to win across the right-hander. Congratulations to Mitchell Johnson, his first test wicket.
Anyway, during the first test, MacGill wasn't really required, as Australia crushed Sri Lanka on the bouncy Gabba wicket. Phil Jakes, Michael Clarke and Michael Hussey all made tons, and the pace combination of Brett Lee, Stuart Clarke and Mitchell Johnson got the job done fairly easily.
There he goes again. Get ready down there. No, it's gone over the top. Forget about it. It's in the road.
And you might be sitting back in your living rooms thinking, now, how does Gilchrist pick which way Moore is spinning? I don't think he cares.
Playing cricket in Hobart during early November would be a good excuse, I guess, but it was pretty clear that the 36-year-old Stuart MacGill was having trouble feeling his spinning fingers for most of the second test. After Gilly teed off and smoked some big sixes onto the hill, Sri Lanka was set the mammoth total of 507 runs for victory over days 4 and 5, a situation where Australian fans are accustomed to Shane Warne spinning Australia to victory with relative ease. However, Kumar Sangakkara had other ideas.
There she goes, and he puts it away. Shouldn't bother the Australians too much. You want the batsman playing a few shots. It was a rank full toss, but MacGill maybe pinched one, spin it out the rough to the left hand, of course a problem or two. Sangakkara, a fine player. Struck that well. That's 4. Split the fieldsman. Good batsmen do that. You get a bad ball. There's 2 men out, 1 forward and 1 back with a square leg, and he found the gap. He's in fine touch.
Stuart MacGill tossed up full bangers and half trackers that were rightfully dispatched by Sangakkara, who made a glorious 192. At one stage, Sri Lanka looked like they were going to pull off the impossible. That was until Sangakkara was given out off an absolute howler. Ah, the pre-DRS days. Still, Sri Lanka made 410, which still to this day is their highest ever fourth innings score. It was pretty clear that MacGill was a shadow of his former self, and following the test, was diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome in his spinning hand. This required surgery and meant he was unavailable for the upcoming test series against India starting in MCG on Boxing Day.
Boundary yet from the bowling of Brad Hogg. Oh. Look at that. That's the advantage of wrist spin, even on a surface as true as this one. Oh, brilliant. Wonderful cricket. Masterful from Brad Hogg, who gave the ball just a touch more air. Adam Gilchrist did the rest.
Big grin, tongue out, zooming flipper and a bamboozling wrong-un. Brad Hogg was an absolute delight to watch as an Australian cricket fan. He helped lead Australia to 2 Cricket World Cup victories and played a vital role in the 2003 campaign, when Shane Warne, of course, was rubbed out with his drug ban. He also even supported Stuart MacGill as the second spinning option in Sri Lanka back in 2003. The question was, though, could Hoggy emulate his outstanding ODI bowling in the Test arena against the likes of Sachin Tendulkar, VVS Laxman, Sourav Ganguly and, of course, MS Dhoni?
Short delay. Oh, Tendulkar really wants a piece of Brad Hogg. It's a slow outfield and that is a huge boundary. Sachin's bat is just good enough for him. Oh, there he goes. That's a beauty. And a biggie.
Magnificent shot. Tendulkar has decided that Hogg is going to have to go.
46 now to Tendulkar.
Yeah, no, he was actually dispatched to all corners of the MCG by Sachin. Hoggy did toil away, and although he did pick up the pole of Ganguly with a glorious flipper, he was treated mostly with contempt by the Indians. Australia ended up winning the test on the back of a magnificent pace bowling effort in what was a seam-friendly conditions. It was all about the SCG test, the New Year's test where Hogg would truly show his worth. And with India selecting Harbhajan Singh and Anil Kumble in their side, spin looked to be the ultimate decider of the SCG test.
The incident centred around an alleged racial slur from Harbhajan Singh directed at Aussie all-rounder Andrew Symonds. According to Tendulkar, Harbhajan used a Northern Indian expression which means your mother to Symonds, rather than calling him a monkey.
Unfortunately, the 2008 SCG test will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Mostly racism allegations, cheating accusations and poor sportsmanship shown from both teams. It was on day 5 that the only result possible was in fact an Australian victory or a drawn test. Brad Hogg had the chance to spin Australia to victory, but ultimately he couldn't deliver. Andrew Symonds offered some support with his part-time spin, but it wasn't until Ponting, out of sheer desperation, chucked the ball to part-timer Michael Clarke, and with only 3 overs remaining, Australia pulled off an impossible victory.
We won't be going to National 9 News to the end of this test match, be it a draw or a win. Got in! Yes, he has! That's a big one! So Harbhajan's gone. go before acceptances. Pick up the line first. Yes! It's gone! It's over! Clark's done the damage. Australia win. What a performance. 3 wickets and an over. 16 on the trot. He hasn't gone yet. He's out. There's no doubt about that. What a test match. From day 1 to day 5. And the hero in the end is the unlikely Michael.
Unfortunately, Hoggy was dropped for the 3rd test in Perth in favour of a 4-man pace attack. A decision which actually ultimately backfired, with Sean Tate slinging balls everywhere except on the line of off stump. India became the first team to beat Australia on home soil in almost 5 years. Hogg was recalled for the final test in Adelaide, which ended up being a dull draw on a lifeless batting track, and managed to snare 2 wickets for the game. The match didn't actually even make it to the 4th innings, and will be remembered for the sudden retirement of the great Adam Gilchrist. Shortly after the series, Brad Hogg announced his immediate retirement from international cricket. He cited mental health problems and his personal marriage breakdown as the main reasons for him giving up the game. It actually wasn't until years later that Brad Hogg revealed in interviews he was in fact in a very dark place and experienced suicidal thoughts. Fortunately, he did manage to turn his life around, and he even made a comeback in the international T20 side at the tender age of 41 down the track.
It's one of his danger balls, Stuart MacGill. Virtually comes out the front of the hand. A little bit of backspin and a little bit of side spin. It just gripped a little bit.
Following surgery and the retirement of Brad Hogg, Stewie MacGill came back into the Test side for Australia's first Warneless overseas Test tour in the West Indies. MacGill played the first 2 of the 3 Tests, but dropped a bombshell by announcing his retirement mid-Test. This left the Australian Test team depleted of spinning experience. In the space of just 8 Tests, Shane Warne, Brad Hogg and Stuart MacGill had all retired, which left the team floundering for the foreseeable future, trying to find the next generation of Aussie spinners. Who the hell is Beau Casson? It's a bloody good trivia question at a sportsman's night, that's for sure. For those who don't know, Beau Casson was the backup spinner / all-rounder / drinks carrier / work experience kid selected in the 2008 Test squad to tour the West Indies. He was like Leo DiCaprio when he was playing that doctor in Catch Me If You Can. He wasn't expecting to get called into the ER. He was just there for all the spiced rum and the Cubans. But since MacGill and Brad Hogg were both gone, he had to concur with the Test selectors and become Australian Test cricketer 401.
And it's a great catch, taken under the bat, and Xavier Marshall is gone. The Australians have gotten the breakthrough, and Beau Casson has gotten his first wicket in Test cricket.
Casson came from nowhere, but benefited from Stuart MacGill being recalled into the Test side at the start of the previous summer. This actually left Casson as New South Wales frontline spinner. And that summer he claimed the second most wickets by a spinner in the Sheffield Shield, picking up 29 wickets at an average of 35. Casson only ever played the 1 Test for Australia, and later retired at the age of 28 from a pre-diagnosed heart condition.
Tendulkar's gone, caught an extra cover. Cameron White has a crucial wicket. The disbelief is evident everywhere.
It's loss of concentration. It was the light that was playing on his mind.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
In 2008, White was the captain of a Victorian side, but wasn't even the first choice spinner in his team, and he would rarely choose to bowl himself at first class level. Victoria's choice spinner at the time was Bryce McGain. Remember that name, it'll be important later. White's rise to Test selection was sudden, unexpected, and the results of many dominoes falling into place all at once. I'll try and do my very best to explain it for you. It all started when Australia hosted Bangladesh in Darwin. Yep, you heard that right. The selectors clearly weren't taking the ODI series seriously though, and they made the decision to rest Ricky Ponting, Brett Lee and Matthew Hayden, and made Michael Clarke stand-in captain for the series. Before the first match, Andrew Symonds decided to skip training and go fishing, thus leaving him out of favour with the new stand-in skipper Michael Clarke, who dropped him from the squad. White was brought into the side to replace Symonds as the bowling all-rounder. He would then go on to claim career best figures of 3 for 10 off just 2 overs. Following this series, White was chosen as Australia A captain and led a side of up-and-coming cricketers in a 50-over tournament on the subcontinent against India A and New Zealand A. With a newfound confidence, White was the leading wicket taker for Australia A throughout the series and led them to victory over India in the final. Shortly after, White was included in the Australian Test squad to travel to India as the replacement for Andrew Symonds, who was suspended for the tour. With Bryce McGain and Jason Krejza also named, it was highly unlikely White would be granted a test as a first-choice spinner. Or so we thought. Shortly after arriving in India, Bryce McGain succumbed to an ongoing shoulder injury and was sent home. Why Beau Casson wasn't flown over as a replacement is a mystery. I'll never understand, but anyway, that's how it is. This left Australia with the uncapped Jason Krejza as the likely incumbent spinner for the first test. Or so we thought. During a warm-up game against an Indian President's 11, Krejza was dispatched all over the park. His second innings figures were none for 76 off just 11 overs, which gave him overall match figures of none for 199. Ponting was apparently keen to persist with a Tasmanian teammate, but alas, he was outvoted and thus Cameron White became the last man standing.
Beautiful catch from Matthew Hayden, and what a wicket for Cameron White. It was Sachin Tendulkar just shuffling on the crease.
Cameron White may only have 5 Test wickets to his name, but I doubt many other cricketers can boast that Sachin Tendulkar makes up 40% of all of their Test victims. The first Test was a draw, with Australia running out of time to bowl India out on day 5. In the second, India absolutely annihilated Australia by 320 runs, and then went on to make 620 runs in the first innings of the third Test, which Australia managed to salvage a draw out of. This meant India was 1-0 up with 1 Test to play, meaning Australia had to win the final Test to ensure that the series was a draw. As things were looking pretty desperate, Australia unhatched a crazy plan to try and retain the Border Gavaskar Trophy.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place.
Yeah! Yes! Yes, indeed. That is a magical moment.
Unplayable. Anybody in world cricket would have been out to this delivery. Getting it.
In Test cricket, there are very few bowlers who have taken 8 wickets in an innings. There are also very few bowlers who have conceded more than 200 runs in their first innings. It was a bittersweet debut, as Jason Krejza conceded more runs than anyone in their maiden Test performance. He did, though, go on to finish with 12 victims for the game to end up with match figures of 12 for 358. He was an all-or-nothing bowler, with wickets and boundaries more likely to occur than dot balls. He conceded an epic 4.78 runs per over throughout the entire course of the match. Still, with 12 wickets for the game, Krejza has the 24th best match figures in Australian Test cricket history and was awarded Man of the Match for his efforts.
Yes, LBW! India win the Test match in Nagpur, and with it, they take the Border Gavaskar Trophy.
Australia lost the match and the series 2-0. People were not expecting Australia to win in India, But it could be argued that this was the start of the great Australian demise, as the once invincible Australian Test team started to become a rabble of its former self. Summer 2008-2009 started against New Zealand. Andrew Symonds returned from his fishing suspension to play the first test at the Gabba on a seam-friendly wicket in place of Jason Krejza. The Australians won the first test easily before heading to the Adelaide Oval for the second test, in which Krejza was picked to play. During training just days before the test, however, Krejza rolled his ankle in the nets, forcing him out of the match. This meant a replacement bowler had to be rushed in at the 11th hour. Nathan Hauritz was rushed into the Australian side nearly as quickly as he was rushed out of it, as he himself was injured on the first day's play. Even though he was quite handy in picking up 2 wickets, he limped off the field with an ankle injury, leaving it up to the seam bowlers and the great catching skills of Ricky Ponting to get the job done.
Outside edge, and oh, what a catch! What a catch! Ricky Ponting! He was flying to his right and snavels it.
South Africa arrived for the first of 3 tests at the Wacker, boasting a talented and up-and-coming squad led by Graham Smith. Krejza was straight back into the team for his first appearance since his 12-wicket debut and his first test on home soil.
Was a slower ball, he softened him up with a couple of short ones and then gave him the old soccer ball, the slower ball. And Jason Krejza to a good catch running in.
Unfortunately, these catches off the excellent bowling of Mitchell Johnson were Krejza's only highlights during the first game. But on the final day's play, Krejza had the opportunity to help Australia claim victory when South Africa was set a world record 414 runs for victory.
Beau de Villiers has taken some excellent catches to dismiss some Australian batsmen over the last 4 days. Made runs in both innings now. He's out! Yes! No, he's not. It went just over the hands of Brett Lee. He took a chance, just cleared of Brett Lee, who made a great effort at mid-on, and it's gone for 4.
Look, who knows what would have happened if Brett Lee had held on to the catch of AB de Villiers. Maybe Krejza would have gotten on a roll and spun Australia to victory. Maybe he'd go on to play 50 test matches and become the replacement spinner Australia were looking for. Who knows? It is amazing how in a game of cricket, how decisive one moment can be. As it turned out, South Africa stunned Australia, winning by 6 wickets, chasing down a mammoth total. Australia had lost 2 test matches in Perth in a row, and Jason Krejza was dropped from the test side, albeit very harshly, considering he had taken 12 wickets in his previous game, and he was never recalled again. This decision is one that really annoyed me at the time, as it was so inconsistent and harsh with what had happened previously. Firstly, you give Jason Krejza a game at the Wacker, a ground where 10 months earlier the selectors had dropped Brad Hogg in favour for an all-out pace attack. Secondly, after only contributing 1 wicket for the match, they then drop Krejza, a bloke who was man of the match on debut with 12 poles, is just dropped 1 test later for not spinning Australia to victory on Australia's least friendly pitch for spin bowling. Krejza never played another test match. He did, however, earn another trip to India in 2011 as a specialist spinner for the 2011 Cricket World Cup squad.
Runs coming freely at the moment. That will be 4.
Nathan Hauritz continues. JP Duminy continues. You look at this placement. There's a man back at straightish mid-wicket. There's a mid-on drop back about 10 yards. And he has threaded that perfectly.
Nathan Hauritz was brought back into the side for Boxing Day, a test in which Australia had to win to keep the series alive. Hauritz played a relative solid role. The attention at the time, however, was focused on the dismal performance of Australia's batsmen, who were completely and utterly destroyed by Dale Steyn.
Gone! 10 wickets for Steyn. What a performance on the MCG. He gets 10, following up his 76 with the bat. They're all out for 247. The lead 182 for Australia.
South Africa cruised to victory and secured a series win, meaning the unthinkable had happened. Australia lost a test series on home soil, the first time in 16 years. All of a sudden, questions were being asked about Ricky Ponting and his captaincy. The Sydney Morning Herald published a fake obituary in their paper following the test, emulating what the English had done in the 1800s and creating the birth of the Ashes. Growing up watching cricket in Australia as someone who was born at the start of the 90s, it was never really a question of, do you think Australia will win? It was more, how much do you think they'll win by? This defeat illustrated that Australia were no more the kings of Test cricket, and the only thing left was to try and secure some pride out of the final test at the SCG.
Oh, that's ripped into the gloves, off a length. And that really has hurt Graham Smith. That could be a real bad one, that. And it certainly bounced a lot more than I thought it was going to, and no doubt it bounced a lot more than Graham Smith thought it was going to. Maybe hit that crack. Up it came. Let's have a look where it hit. Oh no, it's the little finger.
He'll be keen to stay on. He's in pain, but he'll want to stay on.
He's trying very hard to put his hand in the glove there, but not having a lot of success.
The third test was an absolute epic. Mitchell Johnson broke Graham Smith's hand for the first, but not the last time. Actually, now that I think about it, this incident was probably the inspiration for Michael Clarke's famous sledge to Jimmy Anderson that took place 4 years later.
Get ready for a broken fucking arm.
Oh, now then, yes! McDonald's got it. Dale Stone, LBW. Now, wait a minute. What's happening? Graham Smith is coming out to bat. A series that has gripped us from first to last continues to do so. The drama is by no means done. This is a mighty figure, one of the great men of the modern game, and Sydney is standing to him.
Graham Smith is out there with the damaged elbow, his top hand, the broken hand, his bottom hand. Well played, very well played. It will have hurt, it will have really hurt, but it is magnificently well played. No single player has more respect than this man, Graham Smith.
Australia pulled off an unbelievable victory in the dead rubber at the SCG, despite Graham Smith's heroics of basically batting with one hand trying to save the test. The Aussies farewelled the retiring Matthew Hayden with a stirring victory, and, for most part, everything was going well. Behind the scenes, however, things were starting to unravel. There was the now infamous Clarke-Katich incident in the change rooms after the test, where Cat and Pup got into a scuffle after Clarke became agitated because he wanted to leave and go and hang out with Lara Bingle on James Packer's yacht. Something he obviously couldn't do until Katich had sung the team song. The incident in the SCG dressing rooms occurred on the 2-year anniversary of Shane Warne's retirement. And in those 2 years, Australia had played 17 test matches and had used and discarded 5 different spin bowling options. And the sad part is, they were only halfway through the applicant list and were still over 2 years away from debuting the saviour, Nathan Lyon. This concludes part 1 of my deep dive into the circus that was trying to find a spinning replacement for Shane Warne. Please check out part 2 where I continue to look at the rest of the lambs for the slaughter as the Australian cricket team capitulates. Before going, I'd like to thank the incredible Rob Moody, aka Robelinda2, for his incredible archived videos on YouTube. If you're watching this, mate, please keep up the great work.